In this episode, we are talking about evolving your business offering and playing the long game. And I'm thrilled to have today's guest with me. Fiona Redding is a mindset coach, a business strategist, a facilitator, a keynote speaker. She's an author and a podcaster, and she has an amazing focus on well-being and happiness. Fiona founded her business, The Happiness Hunter, 10 years ago. And I first met Fiona, I think around 7 or 8 years ago, when I was looking for an Australian business podcast and that I wanted to listen to. And I heard Fiona's story and I just really resonated with her story at a really deep level. And I quickly got involved with the vision that she had for The Happiness Hunter and all that it stood for. So I'm really excited for this conversation today to hear Fiona's wisdom on being in business for the long game. And as someone who has overcome many challenges over the last few years, especially even living in Melbourne and running a business and as a single mom with young children and forever evolving her business offering. So welcome, Fiona Redding. It is super exciting to have you here.
Tony, thank you so much. And I remember when you got in touch about the Business Addicts podcast, and yeah, it's been lovely to kind of be, sharing the business journey in a way alongside you over the last few years too. So thanks for having me on your show, and congratulations on launching your podcast too.
Yes, thank you. It's been something that's been in the pipeline for a little while for me. So it's just one of those things. Once you get going, it's like, okay, we're off. It's great. Yep. So really enjoying it. So I would love to know, Fiona, could you just share a little bit with us around, what really led you to become a coach and start your own business? And, why is it so important to, the things that you do?
So I think I would be what you call the accidental coach, I think would be a fair way of saying it. So I started my business in business consulting because I hadn't been able to find work. I'd been looking for work for about 12 months. And after I'd had my kids, and I just wanted to kind of re-enter the workforce in a meaningful part-time capacity. And I was looking for about 12 months. And there was one day where I had submitted this application and my kids were both crying. They were both tiny. And it had taken me hours to kind of fulfill this application. And I sent it off. And there was something inside me that said, you're not doing that again. Like, that's it, you're done, and I hadn't heard back from any of the previous applications and all the rest of it. So, and then I was like, I need to think a bit more laterally about how I can match my skill set to self-employment. And I was like, oh, well, I can do business consulting. And so then what happened was that was in late 2012. And by January 2013, I kind of realized that my life was absolutely in a not very good place. And I stopped drinking, left my partner, and then I was basically homeless. I had one client at this stage. Was trying to rebuild my life. And I I discovered metaphysics, and I started to understand that I had the power within me, through my thoughts, the way I felt, what I believed, the actions that I took, that I was the creator of my own reality. And so I was sort of coaching or working with businesses around setting up strategies and systems and processes and stuff. But what I started to realize was it was never about the business in and of itself. It was about helping the people in the business be better for business. And then so Vivacity Consulting became business with Vivacity, became Fit for Biz, and ultimately became the Happiness Hunter. And I started the Happiness Hunter walks, and I started sharing with people about what I was, going through and understanding and exploring in my own life. And then, I started running retreats and I started doing one-on-one coaching around that. And that's basically how the business evolved. So it was really just about, all I wanted to do, I was so unhappy in my life and I just wanted to be happier. But because I had this kind of mix of business and corporate background and starting my own business and literally bootstrapping my own business, like literally on Centrelink parenting payments, building a website with those payments and, experiencing the homelessness and quite significant financial insecurity and, the challenges of going through a separation and being a single parent and all that. Like I just had this experience and that I was going through and the challenges that I was overcoming that I was able to share with other people. And so that's really how my business came about. And yeah, so now that's basically what happened.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like you were saying, that was what, 10 years ago now. And so, you've got 10 years being in business. That is very much classified a long game in today's world. So how have things kind of evolved for you over that time? And what kind of things have I guess inspired those things to evolve?
So, I've tried lots of different things, and I think probably being part of the Business Addicts podcast with Lauren was an incredibly informative, enriching educational experience, because I've really, like, at quite an early stage of my business, without much material success in a lot of ways, was talking with people at the best of their game, like across
Oh,
the
yeah.
world.
It was an
And
incredible podcast. I mean, I think that you guys interviewed like Denise Duffield Thomas and
Chris Ducker and all sorts.
Yeah. It was incredible. Yeah. So you're busy interviewing all these people. Yeah.
Yeah, but really not feeling very successful myself. So, all the imposter syndrome, all of that stuff, and having to work through all of those things, is it what equips us to be able to play the mind game, the mindset piece around it. And so, I was trying different things, but just, coming up against myself the whole time, but not giving up, going, I believe in my success. I set a really incredible vision for the Happiness Hunter from very, very early on. And I absolutely believed with everything within my being that it was possible for that to happen. And so I would take action as if I was doing things as if, I know that I'm a multimillionaire. I'm the fittest, healthiest, and happiest I've ever been. I'm running a globally successful business. I'm an in-demand and highly paid public speaker. Like I created this identity of success for myself before it was even anywhere visible in my life, but I started to believe it for myself.
Yeah.
And so what happens when we do that is that when we have confidence in our vision and are taking action on our dreams as if, other people believe it too. So then it's not just you believing it, but other people are believing it, cheering you on. And so I've always been very open and transparent with everything that's been going on for me, because that's just my method of coaching, if you will. Like, it's through lived experience that I share and teach, and people learn and grow from that.
I think that's something that's really important that you just said there, Fiona. And that's just, you just decided for yourself that that's what was going to be your reality, right? And I think this is a really key thing that, I know I speak to a lot of my clients and students about as well, is that no one's going to decide that for you. Like you literally have to go, this is what I decide is going to be my reality, and you show up, and then other people believe you, that's what you've decided. Yeah.
So we're all kind of, it's all like, we get to create our own reality. But that has to begin within us. Like, we have to believe it and see it and know it within ourselves. And as we do that, other people believe it. And then that's how it becomes real, because everybody's believing this new fantasy that's been created. And it's exciting and it's inspiring for other people as well, because they're like, well, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
But so then I think a pivotal moment came during COVID. So I had was still really struggling in a lot of ways to, build the financial systems and foundations in my life. Like, I really had started my business on the back foot in a lot of respects. There was no startup capital. There was there was nothing really. So the business was providing income, plus I was trying to build the business, blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of just never ahead. I never felt ahead financially, which of course that's my belief system. I've got to keep working through that. Like, the business is a fantastic vehicle to be able to do that. Personally, I think it's one of the greatest personal development exercises a person can undertake. There's
100%. 100%. I honestly believe like business is part of your spiritual evolution.
100%. 100% agree with that. And then writing a book as well. So then what happened? COVID hit, and I literally lost 80% of my business overnight. And so which lots of businesses did, but there was nothing behind me. So,
and you're living in Melbourne as well. Melbourne got pretty hard hit, right?
Two primary school age kids. We go into lockdown, single parent. I'm now trying to like keep things afloat with nothing to keep it afloat, basically, and pivot my business at the same time. And very fortunately, because over the years, I've really been clear again about, that vision I've got for my life. And one of them was, having a really healthy, positive, respectful relationship with my ex and his partner. How do I show up in that? I've always tried to show up well. We actually had quite a positive relationship. So Alex, Brendan's wife and the kid's stepmom, invited me and the kids to go and stay with them to write it out, because we obviously didn't know what was going on at that stage. They were both essential workers, and I was obviously homeschooling the kids. So someone had to homeschool the kids. It didn't make sense. It wasn't going to work for me to kind of stay where we were. Anyway, so we moved in there, and it was like, when you just get that absolute need, like my back was against the wall. It was the second time, actually probably the third time in the previous sort of 10 years that this had really happened, where my back was so far against the wall. There was nothing I could do except move forward, right? Just completely override any of the crap in my head. There was just no space for it. So what I did was really work out, okay, I need to get things online. I'd struggled with that in the past. I just hadn't been able to get all the moving pieces together for that. So I had to sit down and very honestly reflect and go, okay, well, what is it that I am amazingly good at? Like, where are my absolute strengths and where are my absolute weaknesses? I was like able to go, okay, and like, what can I provide? Like, what can I do in this market? Like, there's got to be something I can do and help people and sell in this environment. And so I was like, okay, I'm really good at community and I'm excellent at my work. Like, I'm really, really good. I'm a great coach. Like, I'm a good coach. I really help create transformation, right? I have to own that. I've got to stop downplaying it, being the imposter, all that shit, right? All that stuff, right? I basically had to say, that's no longer relevant. I can help people. But my gap was in terms of sales, in terms of going, okay, well, I've got people that I can help and I've got something I can help them with. But what's the thing? The bridge is missing. It's not even marketing. I was like, I'm good at marketing. I'm good at sharing people, but what I know, but selling, like helping people step over the line to make that decision to say yes to that transformation.
Yeah.
That was my gap. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do some coaching around that. So I started like looking at sales coaching and stuff. I got into millions of people's funnels. And then I ended up being at the end of this funnel, and I realized I hadn't even felt like I was in a funnel, and I was at the point of making a decision. I thought, that is the person I need to learn from. So I went and did some coaching there. And then in the end, I ended up building this program called the Steps for Change, which was, because I'd done all this market research, I knew exactly what people needed, and I trusted myself that I could create the outcome and deliver it for them. So basically I enrolled 10 people in a program that hadn't been built yet. And I built it as I delivered it over 6 weeks. And so basically it's just this incredible program, because I knew the outcome and the journey and, the results that I could help people achieve. And I was pretty clear about how we would do that. But because I built it in real time, I was able to kind of adjust the program as to what people needed at the exact point they needed it, which has made this incredible program. And that's basically what it did. So within 3 months, I'd had the most successful month in business I'd ever had. I had the most successful quarter in business I'd ever had during COVID, during lockdowns, during all of the things. And then I went on to have the most successful, financially successful year in business I'd ever had during lockdowns, COVID in Melbourne, right? So during this narrative where it was the whole world had fallen over, my life actually completely turned around in a different way. And it really reinforced to me that idea. It actually does not matter what is going on in the world around us. We have so much agency that we are not aware of, because we don't allow ourselves to tap into that power. And often we need to be forced, like absolutely forced into it. And so now I'm seeing, so then that was the pivot then. And then we were coming out of COVID and all of the lockdowns. I was like, I want to go back into more of the face-to-face. So I was doing that, but then I was like, this is a bit challenging because the kids are now in high school. I've got limited hours I can work. And I just had to accept I actually do have an online business now, and I can still do the face-to-face stuff, but it actually makes more sense for the stuff to be delivered online, and I'm okay with that. And so I think being able to kind of just go, it's okay. Like, and I started doing stuff, and I've tried doing a whole lot of stuff this year. And I'm like, that works, that doesn't work, that works, that works. I'm not going to do that again. I'm running a retreat at the end of August. And I'm like, I think that might be the last retreat I run for a while. Like, there's a lot of effort and a lot of upfront investment that's required in that kind of thing. And it's like, is that the best way for me to be running my business at the moment?
Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing, like what you've sort of just spoken about there, Fiona. I know, like, often when I'm talking to new business owners and new coaches and things like that, that they can get so caught up in is this going to be the right thing? Is this going to be the right program? Is this going to be, the thing? And I think there's a couple of things from that. Is like, one, you never really know until you actually run it anyway. And two, even if it is the right thing or not the right thing, you can do something else later, right?
Yeah.
Like, nothing ever stays the same. So either you get to a point where you're like, oh, well, I've done that now, like retreats, right? Yeah. Like, I used to always want to run retreats as well. I co-hosted one once, and I went, this is too much. I don't want to be with people for 7 days straight, right? Like,
yeah.
That's not what I want to do. And so you go, okay, I've done that now, and I can look at, whatever else it is that's going to serve where I'm at and who I'm passionate about helping moving forward, right?
Yeah, in that kind of win-win. And even on that, so I've had this idea, it's been knocking at my head for a long time. And during COVID, I had the idea for the Steps for Change. And I also had the idea for this kind of Mind for Business Mastermind. And I was like, no, I'm just going to focus properly on one thing, because I think often we can be a little bit scattered, and it's better to just focus on one thing, get it really running. Not to say you can't do other things, but if we're trying to do too many things, it just gets too scattered, and that's when it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I kind of parked this idea, and I was just doing one-on-one coaching with people at a premium level through this Mind for Business program. Anyway, I decided that I was like, in this current economy that we're in at the moment, there's a lot of doom and gloom. There's a lot of fear. It's reminding me a little bit of the COVID, you might not have experienced it quite the same way in Adelaide, but certainly here in Melbourne, it was so much fear. And I can really see that at the moment. It's like, I can help in this environment. Now, what does that help look like, and who is it for? And I'm like, I think it's for small business owners and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I had this idea, and then I was like, this has got a lot of, resonance with something I did about 3 or 4 years ago called the Academy. Let me go back and have a look at that. And I'm like, wow, so much of this is the same, but I'm positioning it differently. I'm different. The market's different. I really understand more deeply now the need for it and why it's needed and how I can help. Whereas before, I just didn't have that same depth of understanding. So it's not to say that the Academy was a failure, even though it was a failure. If you go, it didn't continue. Like, it just didn't get the traction at the time. I didn't have the systems and stuff behind it. I wasn't marketing. I hadn't positioned it properly. I wasn't clear enough who it was for, all of that stuff. It wasn't a failure, because that knowledge and learning and understanding that I got at that time, I didn't realize I had gained all of that until I started to do this. And I'm like, oh, now it's making sense. And had I not done that, I wouldn't be in this position. And another example of that actually is I've just published my second book, self-published.
Congratulations. Yes, that's amazing.
Got knocked back by 2 publishers, didn't care, because my intention was always to self-publish. And along the way, there was these opportunities came in. They didn't want it. I'm like, that's fine. No deal. I'll go on and do it. But I'd actually, in 2018, released my first book, which was The Happiness Hunter's Guide to Meditation. And I can't tell you, Tony, that book pushed all of my buttons. I felt like such a fraud, such an imposter. I was never really able to talk about it, didn't want to market it, had spelling mistakes in it, all of this stuff, right? But when I'd first written it, I was like, this is my practice book. And I didn't really understand what that meant until I got to the point with this book where I launched it, and I'm like, I've got to market it. And I'm understanding, had I not had that experience, I'd be working through all of that stuff now. And it's like, so it's like, we just keep moving. Not everything's going to be a success. Something's going to just push all our buttons and it gets kind of parked away and hidden. But I think that's 2 really great examples with the first book and with that Academy, that online kind of coaching thing that I created, to where I am today. I'm only able to do these 2 things because of those 2 let's call them failures in a way. They're not.
Yeah, but they're not failures though, are they? They're not failures. I mean,
But
and
they
this is
feel
the
like
thing.
it at the time. It
Yeah,
feels like it at the time.
you feel it, but I'm sure like the people who were in there and that were getting your help loved it and were really grateful and felt like, you know, it was really great program. But yeah, but in our own minds we can go, oh, but it didn't continue, or I didn't get more signups or whatever, and so it's a failure. But it's all the learning that you get along the way. And I think like this is the thing. I talk so much, especially to new coaches, about this, is that, you know, sometimes people get in that space of, I don't know enough yet. Like I need to learn something else. I need to learn something else. It's like you literally can't learn the stuff that you think you need to learn without doing it. Like that's where the learning comes from, right?
It's the experience. It 100%. It's like, it just, you know, and that's why I think, you know, this idea of being in it for the long game, like it is so challenging. And if you know, we just, you know, I'm not making money, or I'm not doing this, or that's not happening. It's like it's almost like, and I know, I don't mean to say that you can't make money immediately overnight, but absolutely you can. But if you've got things that you need to clean up, you need to clean them up.
Yeah.
And the way you're going to clean them up is by understanding that they're there. And the only way you're going to understand that they're there is by doing things to highlight them.
Doing the things, yes.
Doing the things and outside of your comfort zone. And that's why it's so important to have the support of a community who get it.
Yeah. I'm currently running this 5-day Master Your Mindset challenge. And, you know, one of the questions that come up today was, you know, should you have like big money goals, or should you have realistic money goals, right? And it's a really interesting question, because, you know, everything just comes down to what your meaning is anyway. But the thing is, like you said, it is possible for people to go out and make, you know, crap ton of money, right? But it's not a matter of what you're going to get. It's a matter of who do you need to be so that
Right.
is your reality.
Yep.
And how much do you allow yourself to move into that identity?
100%.
Like, or how quickly you're comfortable with that, because we know, right, change isn't necessarily very comfortable for a lot of people.
I think also too with that as well. So like, as I said, during COVID, like I made a lot of money really quickly, but Tony, I couldn't sustain it because there was stuff I needed to clean up.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like I've come a bit full circle with that. It's like I can make money quickly and can sustain it. But I had to learn what I needed to learn to know what I needed to know. And that point that you raise is such a fascinating one about, you know, realistic, unrealistic goals, right? So my major definite purpose is, when I first wrote it, is and this is an idea about, you know, that you have just such a clear, compelling purpose that is you've got to step into it and become that identity. And mine is basically, it's a bit long, but one of the things was, you know, I have in my possession in excess of $20 million when I first wrote it, and over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was sitting with that and I'm like, that feels like I'm kind of limiting myself somehow. And I'm like, I'm going to push that out to a point that is so deeply uncomfortable for me that I have to say it every day until it becomes comfortable. So I'm like, in excess of $200 million. And I've written this, it's in my book, right, as well. And when I look at the thing that made me the most uncomfortable about publishing this book was that one line, $200 million, right? But it's not about the money. It's about what the money represents. It's about who I had to become, how I had to expand, how my thinking had to open up, how my action had to open up, how my heart had to open up, how many people I would have had to help for that to come into my reality. So that's helpful for me, even though it still sometimes makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, it's my job's not the how. My job's just to go, that is the belief, that is what is possible for my life, that my life could be so rich in so many ways that money is manifested like that, you know. And this is from somebody who's literally had literally nothing, like homeless, single parent, no income. I'm like, what is the absolute opposite of that? Well, it's like that level of kind of wealth. However, I set myself really achievable goals on a weekly basis. I don't sit there and go, I've got to make $50 million this week.
Yeah.
I go, okay, $5,000 would be great this week. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you doing? What action are you taking this week to generate that?
Yes.
So it's bringing those, you got the vision, like the vision never changes, but it's like, let's meet myself where I'm at. You know, if I'm doing a launch of something, by all means. So like even with this Mind for Business, I'm like, my goal is to get 10 or 20 people enrolled in this, right, to start for next week. And now I've spoken to about 40 people and I've got 15 or 20 in principle yeses, right? It's completely achievable. And I'm like, okay, but the stretch on that, let's go for 50. That's it. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so how many people do I need to speak to for that to happen? And I'm like, okay, well, so then this week, the big scary action that I need to take is I need to just write a list of every single person that I know in business who would be a fit for this and just reach out to them and say, hey, did you know I've got this new thing going on? Like, that's how we bring those $200 million in my possession down to what does that mean for my action today?
Yeah.
That's
it. And I think, it's like key what you just said there as well, because, that's one of the things that I find myself talking to people about is that, we were talking about sales earlier. You mentioned sales and I always look at sales as just like it's a coaching call, right? Your person's got a problem and you just help them overcome their objections to themselves, essentially, to get to that solution. But even the best salesperson doesn't convert 100%, right? Like, I don't know, what would you say you convert? 30%, 40%?
Well, I think
I don't know. It depends on how qualified your people are, I guess.
And I think how clear you are on your offering. And I think I love what you said then. It's like it isn't sales. It's about really personally, and I will say this to people all the time when I'm on the call with them, and I give an hour for calls, right? Because to me, it's like my job is to help this person say yes to themselves, right? I know I can help them. Like I absolutely know this is a belief system I have. If I am speaking to somebody on the phone, I know I can help them. If we have got to the point where we are actually having a call together, they know I can help them and I know I can help them. Well, we hear. So my job now is just to help them make the decision to say yes, because that yes, honestly, that's 99% of the work done. That is the hardest decision to make, is to say yes and to put money down on the table. 100%. Yes. So now you've done that. Now we go, right, we've committed to each other. What do we need to do? I will support you. I'll meet you wherever you need to be met, but you have to rise up to meet me too. Like it's got to, coaching is a symbiotic relationship. Both parties have to be working for it to work. But yeah, absolutely. I think that as a coach, it's not about like just getting numbers and engaging and I need this many people. It's like each of those people is a person. And if you can, and this is the long game again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have conversations with people who may not become clients then, but because they've been heard and listened to and understood and respected, and I haven't, created a false anything for them. It's just like, you need help. If you don't get the help now, whether it's with me or someone else, nothing's going to change. Like not because that's my rules. That's just actually the way it is, because you haven't made a decision yet. Like, you've got to make a decision. But those people go on to become clients later. They support everything I do. They are the most loyal and engaged members of my community because they know I genuinely care. Yeah. But they become incredible referral points.
Yes.
So this 1 hour conversation is not, I'm not being valued for my time. It's like I am building a relationship with someone, whether they become a client now or later, or a referral person, or just a really awesome member of the broader community. Everyone's still winning.
Yes. It's so true. And that reminds me, Fiona, when I first met you, and then I started Happiness Hunter Walk in Adelaide. Right. And you come over for the launch and everything like that. And so, I had a Happiness Hunter Walk. For those who don't know what it is, it's like weekly we would have a meeting, and I walked around at Mawson Lakes here in Adelaide. And it was like a safe space where people could come and talk, but there was no kind of whinging and carrying on. You needed to be talking and, in a sharing, but being positive about what you're going to do and those kinds of things. And I love doing those walks. And I think I run my walk for about 2 years. And I had people who walked around with me every week for about 2 years, who never did any business with me. Right. And it wasn't like that was necessarily the whole be all and end all of it. It was like, I really liked, it was good connection for me being in business. It was good connecting with other people and coming together. But ultimately, like, I knew there was people there that I could help at another level. But it was after that, I think after I finished doing those walks, that quite a few people that I walked with did end up coming doing business with me. And like you said, they become, some of my most loyal raving fan type people, because we built a relationship, and like I genuinely cared about them and their life and their business and them as a person. And I think that's the thing that we've got to look at in business, right? Like, that is part of it. Like, if we talk about business being a spiritual evolution, it is, because it's like the relationships you have with people and the value that you offer and how you show up in the world and all those kinds of things. So it's a really interesting, and I think it just comes back again to that long game, right?
Yeah. And, as we were talking before as well, like the idea of that, those happiness hunter walks. So we've got one walk still going in Blackrock. And again, it was just after COVID, I just thought, just have one walk going. We've got people come from all over Melbourne for that walk. And for me, it's really about that idea of giving first. And, those walks actually started when I literally had nothing to give except my time and knowledge. And I was like, and we all need to be connecting, and we all need to be looking after our well-being and taking time out from our lives and genuinely having those really proper relationships and connections with people. But when we give first, there's universal principles that support this. When we give first, it comes back to us, but we're not giving for it to come back. We're giving because it feels like the right thing to do, to give and to support and to all of that. And, as you said, that's a really good example. It's not about looking for that instant transaction and that instant result. It's playing the long game, but it's not a game. It's just building relationships with people. That is business. Business is actually about our relationships with other people. And the more positive relationships, genuine positive, not pretend positive relationships we have with people, the more successful we will be. Not just, and this is really important to acknowledge, we're talking about business being that kind of spiritual experience. This is about our inner growth that is then manifest in the external world. But we have to accept there's an inner process that has to happen first, and coaching helps facilitate that. But I think, I was saying before, Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything you want in this world if you will just help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we can genuinely do that, like, and that's even what I was, with this idea about the mind for business, like, I've got so much knowledge and experience that I can share, like, truly give back to the small business community in a meaningful way that's not watered down, that's not like the taster, that's not it's genuinely just properly supporting and meeting people where they're at. There are universal laws at play that I am going to benefit from that. But I'm doing it because it feels like the right thing to do. And I'm not buying into this, if you don't pay for it, then you don't value it. I just don't believe that anymore. Like, I think there is an element of that, but I just think, let's just meet each other where we're at and help each other have really successful businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's your intention, right? It's your intention behind what you're doing that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And checking in with that and being honest with yourself about that intention, because I think that some over the way, the ego kicks in, and I think I've been perhaps deluding myself a little bit about my intention behind doing things. And I do have to keep really bringing myself back and going, well, hang on a minute, Fiona, just hold the phone. Like, what is your true intention here? And that's where these things come from, is actually, like, I just feel like I want to help people, like, and I don't want people to have to struggle for as long as I did on their own.
Yeah.
Because I literally wasn't in a position to pay for the support and the help that I needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't that I didn't see the value in it. I hadn't got myself to the point where I could pay for it.
Yeah.
I needed to get to the point to be able to pay for it. It's like, I can help people at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you are in that space and you've been there, you understand a lot more what those people are going through, right? And I think, like, often I hear people talk about this, it's like, oh, well, I want to be able to help certain people, but those people might not have a lot of money or whatever else. And I think there's lots of different business models, but I think any business model you can easily have a lower cost
Yep.
something that serves people where they're at,
Yep.
right? And those people, what I've found is often those people, that it's not just even that maybe they don't have the money for the next bigger thing, like they might not even be ready for that type
Yeah.
of kind of level or thinking or neurology or whatever else. And so you can serve people where they're at, and they might come on a journey with you, right? Like that's often what I see happens is, you meet people where they're at, and then they've worked with you, and then they're
That's right.
growing, they're expanding, and they're getting to the next place, and they're looking for that next level of whatever that might be that you can help them with.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's being able to meet people where they're at with love and compassion and respect. And it's not about buying into the stories or anything like that. It's just genuinely going, yeah, I can see you. I see you there.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
my hand, like my
Yeah.
proper hand, not like here's my lead magnet, but here's my hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So Fiona, we've chatted, a lot about, the challenges and the pivots and all those kinds of things, which I think are really valuable for people to hear, because I know, often we can feel like when we're in our own kind of solopreneur business that it's just like, oh my God, I'm the only person feeling this, or I'm the only person having this kind of challenge. So I'm really appreciative that you should share that. But what could you also share with us about what are some of the the real gold that having your own business has brought you? Like, what is it that's always kind of inspired you or lifted you up or kept you going in wanting to do what you do?
Oh, that's such a great question. There's so many things, but I think really I love my life, Tony. Like I feel I really have I can structure my life, my days as I want to. I'm always available for anything that my kids need. I can scale up and I can scale down. I can take holidays whenever I want to. But the idea that I'm living my life, I really genuinely, honestly believe that the happiness hunter is my purpose. And
Yeah.
that's a very fulfilling way to live. And accepting that if it is my purpose, then it is necessarily meant to be difficult and challenging. And really leaning into and embracing that, I think, is a very empowering way to live, really.
Mm, yeah. And I think it always depends on how you frame difficult and challenging as well, right? Because like sometimes we go, oh, there's challenges. It's really interesting because I caught myself a little while back that I noticed I kept saying to people, I really love business because it's the only thing in my life that really challenges me to grow. And then I was like, I might want to change this language, because I was like starting to feel very challenged about different things. But it is really, it's the growth, right? Isn't it? It's that kind of growth and what you learn and things along the way. But I mean, as well, I think the people that you get to help and you see, transform and shift and all those kinds of things, I think is always a big driver for me as well.
Yeah, really, like that's that bit about, it's a fulfilling life because you're doing good work, as a
Yeah.
coach. But also too that, you're saying about the inspiration stuff. Like I just love being part of people in business. Like that really, I'm so inspired by people that have got the courage and the adaptability and the resilience and the fortitude to go out and carve their own path, and to know that I am in that company. Like sometimes you don't always feel like you are, but you are, right? Yes,
Yeah.
if you're doing it, you're doing it. You're not like nearly doing it or on your way to doing it. You're actually doing it, even though you might not feel like you've arrived anywhere. But where's there? Like there's nowhere to arrive. Like, that just having this being part of that, like I genuinely know I am not going to have regrets about what I did or didn't do with my life. The success is the effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not playing the safe road or the easy road, because there's really no growth in that. And I really believe, like, happiness is to be found in the overcoming of obstacles and challenges in our lives, not in the absence of them. It's like, it's that sense of achievement, of overcoming your weaknesses, of building strength in those areas where you are not strong. That is, no one can take it from you.
That's actually factual. There are like research and studies that have been done that show that people have a greater sense of happiness and fulfillment in their life when they're faced with challenges that they've had to put some effort into and overcome.
Yep, 100%. And I mean, I could, like, I am I was the happiness hunter. And so, I've just been trying to work out, well, what does make for a happy life? And it's not an easy life.
Yeah.
Counterintuitively, almost. The happy life is actually that life that is forcing you to step up.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Fiona, I really appreciate that you're coming on, and I'm sure that we could continue chatting about a whole bunch of stuff. But I would love to know, one question that I do have, and I like to ask my guests is, because as business owners, we can get very caught up in the whole, like, business is my life. And I know we talk about integration and all kinds of things, in that as well. But, like, what is it that you really love to do for fun? Like, what are your outside of business fun interests?
So this is a great question, and one that we probably don't consider enough. But I do actually have to say, what we are doing right now is actually probably the best fun I can ever have in my life. Like, honest, I truly, like, my work, working with people, is fun for me. Like, it is so energizing. It's so engaging. It feels so good, like, it feels so good. But outside of this kind of thing, any conversations ever with people in business are actually fun for me. Like, they're fun. It's not, so it's, but I'm also very good at that idea of life integration, of the other, keeping things balanced. And I know I have more fun in business when I'm balanced within myself. So things like, I love exercising, I love walking, I like setting fun goals for myself. Like, I'm training at the moment for some ultra marathon, and that's fun for me, even though it's not fun at the same time. But it's fun because, again, I'm growing and stretching myself and doing things that are outside of my comfort zone. Having great conversations with people about anything, spending time with my kids. I love reading. I love meditating. I love listening to good things and listening to music. I love journaling. I used to love traveling a lot more, but as I'm getting older, I'm finding myself happier at home. I really enjoy spending the weekend at home. Like, just, I go to the farm every second weekend. I've got I'm part of communities. I have a very well-rounded life, and to me that means that I can show up in my best self to everything I do in my work as well.
Yeah, I love that, Fiona. That's amazing. Well, Fiona Redding, thank you so much for being my guest here on the Coaching Circle. I know we kind of mentioned it briefly, but you have just written your second book called It Is Possible.
Here we go. Copy, letting go of who you think you are to create the life of your dreams. And you can see it's got the butterfly.
I love the cover, that butterfly. Yes.
It's beautiful. And this too as well is like, the idea for this book came during that COVID thing, when it literally landed in my head as the name of the book and the outline of the book. And I was like, I've kind of worked out how to overcome this. So I was really conscious during COVID that creating the steps of change and being able to go through that process, that very honest reflection process for myself, to be able to look at my strengths and my weaknesses objectively, right? To actually go, I'm strong here and own that, and I'm weak here and not give myself a hard time about it, and to make a plan to overcome that. I'm like, I can help people. I knew at that point in life, it was such a, I'm going to say, confidence booster, because it was like, actually, I know how to apply what I teach. I've done it several times now, and I'm doing it again. I wanted somebody to be able to go, who's in big trouble in their life, to be able to go to their local library and borrow this book and have hope and the tools and the frameworks and everything that they needed to start to begin to create the transformation in their lives in one place. They didn't have to go and find it in all the different places. And again, it just feels like an honorable way to be living.
Yeah. I love that. I really love that. So it is possible. Check that out. And what's the best way that people can get in contact with you, Fiona?
So they can listen to the Happiness Hunter podcast if they want to find a little bit more about it, or they can just email me, Fiona@thehappinesshunter.com. Always happy to hear from people. There's loads of resources and stuff on my website too, thehappinesshunter.com.
Fabulous. And I'll have all of those links and things in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. And so thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always really love catching up with you, Fiona, and I love what you do. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Tony. And congratulations again on the podcast. It's so good. It's great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.